Are Pure Desire group leaders mandatory reporters? And if so, why is this?
Yes. Short answer, yes, we are mandatory reporters. And a couple reasons why. One, we are protecting our group, also protecting that individual, and then just protecting Pure Desire as a whole. But under that, there's the layers of why we report. And then that's determined by what's reportable, the time frame. There's so many different layers on, we get those questions all the time. Is this reportable? Why should we report this? And usually what I'll say with that is, even if we're not sure, there's a little bit of a gray area of why we report. So something we may think, yeah, that's totally reportable. It's better just to reach out and get some information.
Yeah, ask, right?
And ask. Mm-hmm. And you can call anonymously and say, hey, I have this situation. I'm leading a group for Pure Desire, which we've had leaders do. Is this reportable? And they will say yes or no. And then once we report, basically the legal ramifications, whatever, are kind of off of us. And then now a report's been made. So that's why we do that up front.
Yeah, there are only two categories of people that I'm aware of that would be excluded from being mandatory reporters. And there might be more Rich could add to this, but yeah, there's the lawyer-client relationship where you can share anything with your lawyer and they don't have to report because they're your lawyer and they can advise you what to do, or what's called clergy-penitent relationship, which was established with the idea that people could go and confess to their priest or rabbi or pastor and do that in a confidential way. But even lately, I've seen some lawsuits where clergy penitent relationships are being challenged because clergy did not respond to issues that regarded safety even in their community or church and should have taken some action. And so I think that's the reminders, like, unless your group leader happens to be a lawyer or a pastor, they are just a person that's in this journey with you, and particularly your group as well, because a lot of the sharing we're going to talk about in this episode comes up in that group scenario where all your group members are not going to be pastors or lawyers that could be under that client privilege. So you're really creating a scenario when those things are brought up that are reportable, that it's just the right thing for everybody's protection, and honestly, most of all for the person involved to take the proper steps so that they're not left in a place where things get worse for them. Because I think that's the nature of most reportable offenses. Keeping it quiet and silent is not going to make things better. It's in the long run only going to hurt either the perpetrator themselves that's not dealing with what they need to, or other people that are perhaps vulnerable. So yeah, we just want to recognize there are a couple of specific places where things can be shared where there's not that requirement, but really outside of those two unique situations, we're all in a way mandatory reporters. And so it's good to keep in mind that in this episode, we're not talking about some heavy burden that a group leader has, that it's a reality. This is the kind of role any of us would have if we became aware of information of that nature.
Yeah, well, and I think too, just in you talked about the clergy or the pastor roles, is there's that protection for the clergy. That act is like, so in the childwelfare.gov, which is, I have information here, and you can go to the website. On one page, it'll say that these people are protected from reporting, just like you mentioned, a pastor, that kind of lawyer stuff. But on the next page, there's a lot, oftentimes a gray area. It'll say they're protected, but on the very next part, it says these are mandatory reporters. So they're protected on one hand, but then they need to report. So it's the best thing to do in that situation is, just get familiar with your local and state laws.
And that's the thing. I remember when I was hired as a youth pastor that they told me I was a mandatory reporter. And so even though I was that pastoral oversight, that was something when I was dealing with these students who were underage, like this is something that's essential for me to do. So either way, just doing the research to know what's what.